It is the middle of July. You wake at 3 in the morning and the sheets are soaked clean through. The fan in the corner is not cooling anything. It is just pushing the same hot air around the room. You lie there and you do the arithmetic in your head. A window unit runs you $150, maybe $400 for a good one. Central air, if your old house can even take it, runs $5,000, $7,000 more. And then the bill comes, $40, $60, $100 a month, all summer long, every summer, for the rest of your life. What nobody ever told you is that your grandmother kept her whole house cool in weather worse than this. No unit in the window, no meter spinning on the side of the house. She did it with $4 of cloth and a bucket of water. And the room she slept in was cooler than the room you are lying in right now. The fix is a length of plain cotton cloth, unbleached muslin, or a few feet of burlap. $4 at any fabric counter or hardware store. You wet it down, you hang it across the window where the air comes in, and the breeze that passes through it comes out the other side, cooler. That is the whole secret. It is called evaporative cooling. When water turns from wet to vapor, it drinks the heat right out of the air around it. The hot air walks into your wet cloth, and the heat in it gets spent turning that water to mist. What reaches you is cooler, cleaner air. Not a machine, a cloth. The old-timers called it a wet sheet or a desert cooler, and every one of them knew how to set it up. I am going to show you exactly how, step by step, with nothing you do not already own except $4 of cloth. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Now I am going to be honest with you right at the start, the way I always am. And especially today, because the title of this video is bold. It says, "Cool any room forever. No electricity, no bills." You deserve to know what holds up plain and what holds up with a fair word of explanation. Folks will tell you a wet cloth in the window works like magic everywhere on God's earth. That is the bold claim. The honest truth is more useful than the bold claim. This works powerfully in dry heat. The drier the air, the harder it cools. In a dry summer, it can pull the temperature down 10 degrees, 15. On a good afternoon, I have felt it drop 20. In wet, heavy, humid air, the story changes, and I will not pretend otherwise. Humid air is already half full of water and cannot drink much more, so the cooling is gentler. It still moves cooler, fresher air than you had. It still helps. But it is not the same as a dry mountain afternoon, and a man who tells you it is selling you something. And the word forever needs a fair word too. Forever does not mean you hang one cloth and walk away for the rest of your life. It means a method that is yours forever. A skill that costs pennies each time you use it, that you set up on every hot afternoon the way your grandmother did, that no company can shut off or raise the price on. Honest is more useful than impressive. A $4 cloth you control beats a $5,000 machine you rent from the power company. And once you feel that cool air come through with your own hand, you will not go back. Before I go further, for the folks who want all of this, every old method I have shown on this channel and the ones I have not gotten to yet, I have put it together in a book at my website, eliasyoder.com. I will not mention it again in this video. If you want it, it is there. Now let me show you why the cloth works. Because once you see the simple science of it, the rest of this makes plain sense. Here is what is really happening. Stay with me. It is simpler than they made it sound. Heat is just energy held in the air, and water holds a great deal of energy when it makes the jump from a liquid to a vapor. More than almost anything else you will find in your kitchen. When a single drop of water evaporates, it does not vanish for free. It has to pull energy from somewhere to make that jump from wet to mist, and it pulls that energy as heat, right out of the air touching it. The scientists have a long name for this. They call it the latent heat of vaporization. You do not need the name. You already know the feeling in your own body. Step out of a creek on a breezy day and you shiver, even in the heat of summer. That shiver is the water on your skin pulling heat off your body as it dries. Wet your finger and hold it up into the wind, and the wet side feels cold while the dry side does not. Same thing. Your wet cloth in the window is doing exactly that, but to the whole stream of air walking into your room. The breeze gives up its heat to dry the cloth, and it comes out the far side cooler than it went in. No motor, no gas, no poison, no bill. Just water doing the one quiet trick that water has always done. This is not folk magic, and it is not new. The desert peoples of the old world knew this 2,000 years before there was a wire in any wall. They hung wet reed mats across their doorways, and the hot, dry wind came through soft and cool. Same water, same physics, same as the sink in your kitchen. The science was old before America had a name. This was common knowledge in this country once, plain as bread on the table. The modern air conditioner was invented in 1902 by a man named Willis Carrier. But understand, it was built to cool a printing factory, not a farmhouse. It did not come into ordinary American homes until the 1950s and the 1960s. So sit with that for a moment. For the whole long stretch of the Great Depression, through both world wars, the average American family had no air conditioning at all. None. And the summers were every bit as hot as the ones you are sweating through. Hotter, some of those Dust Bowl years. So they lived by knowing things. Families slept on screened sleeping porches, open to the cool of the night. They hung wet sheets across the open windows on the breezy side of the house. Mountain women in Appalachia kept the cloth damp with a pan of water and a strip of rag for a wick, and never gave it a second thought. Plains families in the dry years draped wet burlap over the windows. The wind blew through. A mother cooled a feverish child with a wet sheet and a cross breeze when there was no doctor for 40 miles and no ice to be had. It cost nothing but water and the knowing. And understand, the houses themselves were built for it. High ceilings, so the hot air had somewhere to rise away from where you sat. Tall windows on opposite walls, set across from one another, so a breeze could run clean through the room. Transom windows above the doors to let the heat pass from room to room. Deep-shaded porches to keep the sun off the walls before it ever got inside. The wet sheet was just the last piece of a whole way of building and living that worked with the weather instead of fighting it with a motor. Then cheap electricity ran to every county in the land. The cooling companies arrived with their machines and their salesmen, and a thing you bought and powered and paid to repair, and bought again, slowly replaced a skill that lived in your own two hands. Understand the shape of it. The wet sheet did not stop working. It works as well today as it did in 1935. We simply stopped being taught it. A whole generation of knowing got traded for a generation of monthly bills, and the new houses got built low and sealed tight, with the windows all on one wall and no breeze able to cross them, because the builder knew a machine would do the cooling now. So even the house forgot how. Now, let me show you exactly how to do it. The whole thing takes one trip to the store and about 20 minutes to set up. I will give you the materials first, with the costs, then the steps. You need one piece of cloth. Unbleached cotton muslin is the best of it. A flour sack towel, an old bed sheet, a few yards of plain cotton off the bolt will all do. $3 or $4. Burlap works too and holds its water longer, though it lets a little less air through. You need a shallow pan or a small bucket for water, and you have one of those already. You need a length of string or an old curtain rod to hang the cloth, and you have that too. And you need plain water. Tap water is fine here. The minerals in your water will not spoil the process. That is the entire shopping list. $4, and most of it is already in your house. Step 1. Pick the right window. Walk through your house in the afternoon and find where the breeze comes from. Wet your finger and hold it up. The side that cools fastest is the side the wind is on. That is your window. The grandpa tip here is simple, and most folks miss it. You want 2 openings, not 1. A window where the air comes in, and a door or a window on the far side of the house, where it goes back out. Air will not flow through a closed room. It needs a way in and a way out. You set your wet cloth on the way in. Step 2. Hang the cloth to fit the open window. It should cover the opening loose, like a curtain, from the top of the frame down past the sill. Do not stretch it tight as a drum head. Loose cloth holds more water, and it gives the passing air more wet surface to brush against. The grandpa tip. Leave the bottom 4 or 5 inches of the cloth hanging down into a pan of water set on the sill. The cloth will drink the water up on its own, the same way an oil lamp draws oil up its wick. That way the cloth stays wet for hours, and you are not running back with a cup every 10 minutes. Step 3. Wet the whole cloth down. Soak it in the pan or pour water over it until it is heavy and damp from the top, clear down to the bottom. Then wring it out one time, just enough that it is not pouring a stream onto your floor. Damp, not flooded. Your grandmother would have said wet enough to drip slow, not wet enough to run. That is the right amount. Hang it back over the window with that bottom edge sitting down in the water pan. Step 4. Open the far side of the house. A window or a door on the opposite side, downwind, cracked open 6 inches or more. Now the cool air your cloth is making has somewhere to travel to, and as it leaves out the far side, it pulls more hot air in through the wet cloth behind it. The room becomes a slow, steady river of cooling air. The grandpa tip for a dead, still day. If there is no breeze at all, this works far less, and I will not lie to you about that. But on those still days, you open the cloth window down low and a window up high on the far side. Hot air rises and slips out the top, and that draws the cooler air in low through your cloth. The house does the pulling for you. Step 5. Now the discipline. This is the part the old-timers never once skipped, and the part most folks today get exactly backwards. You cool the house at night, and you seal it by day. Late in the evening, when the outside air finally drops below the air inside your walls, you open everything wide and let the wet cloth and the night breeze flush the whole day's heat clean out of the house. Then at first light, before the sun gets its teeth into the day, You close the windows up and pull the shades down on the sunny side, and you trap that cool night air inside. The grandpa tip, and I cannot say it plain enough. Do not leave the house thrown open all day in the heat. An open window in 95-degree sun lets the oven straight in. You hold the nights cool by closing up early. The wet cloth handles the little breeze you do let in. The shut shade handles the sun you keep out. That is the whole method. 20 minutes of work, $4 of cloth, a pan of water, and the good sense to do it at the right time of day. Now, I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Think about what you just learned. A $4 cloth that does the same honest work in dry weather that a machine costing thousands of dollars does. Let me give you the plain numbers. A new central air system, bought and installed, runs $5,000 to $7,000 and more for a big house. A window unit runs $150 to $400 and lasts you a few short years before it rattles itself to death. And then there is the meter. Cooling is the single largest summer cost on the American electric bill. A household pays hundreds of dollars every summer to run these machines, and this country as a whole burns through tens of billions of dollars a year on the electricity just to stay cool. The materials in your hand cost $4, and the power your cloth draws on is the wind and the sun, which nobody has yet found a way to put a meter on. Now, I will say it plainly, the way I always do. This is not a conspiracy. There is no villain in this. It is simpler and quieter than that. There is good money in selling a man a machine and a yearly bill and a repair call and a brand new machine when the old one quits on him in August. There is no money at all in selling him $4 of cloth that runs on a breeze and lasts him 10 summers. So the company runs the commercial for the machine. No company on earth runs a commercial for a wet sheet. The hardware store does not hang a sign in the cooling aisle telling you the cloth 2 aisles over does most of the same job for a 40th of the price. A system that makes its money on you not knowing has no reason in the world to teach you. The knowing did not fail. It just stopped being profitable to pass it down. So, quietly, it stopped being passed. You were not paying for cool air. You were paying for the fact that nobody ever taught you how to make it yourself. This same wet cloth works in more places than the bedroom window. Hang a damp sheet across the doorway between a hot room and a cooler one, and the air that passes between them comes through cooled. The old folks cooled a whole long hallway that way. It works for a sick room. When someone is feverish and the heat in the house turns dangerous, a wet sheet hung by the bed with a little air moving past it brings the temperature down gentle and steady, the way mothers did it for 200 years before there was a hospital to drive anyone to. It works for your drinking water and your food. Wrap a wet cloth around a clay jug of water and stand it in the shade where a breeze can touch it, and the water inside turns genuinely cold. That is the very same trick the old desert food safe used to keep butter and milk firm before there was an icebox in any kitchen. Drape wet burlap over a screened box of food kept in the shade, and it stays cool for days. And it works out of doors. Hang a wet sheet across the open side of a porch on a breezy evening, and you have made yourself a cool room out of the open air. 1 cloth, 1 bucket of water, a dozen honest uses. Every farm family in the dry years knew most of them by heart. I told you at the start that I would give you the honest limits, and I hold to my word. In a humid climate, in the wet, heavy heat of a Gulf Coast summer, this cloth cools less because the air is already loaded with water and cannot drink much more of it. It will still move the air and freshen it. It is just gentler there, and you should know that going in. And the word forever, in plain farmer English, does not mean one cloth for the rest of your life. It means a skill that is yours for the rest of your days. A thing that costs a few dollars and a bucket of water each season, that no power company can ever shut off or raise the price on. That is a great deal closer to forever than a machine that needs a repairman and a payment every single month. So here is what I want you to do this week. Find a yard of cheap cotton or a few feet of burlap, $3 or $4. Find the window where your breeze comes in, set a pan of water on the sill, wet the cloth, hang it, leave its tail in the water, and open the far side of the house. Then sit yourself down in that room and feel the cool air come through while the sun beats hot on the wall outside. You just cooled a whole room for $4 and a bucket of water. Your grandmother could have shown you this on a hot afternoon in her kitchen in about the time it takes to wring out a rag. But somewhere along the way, we decided that paying for cool was easier than knowing how to make it. And we have been paying for that decision ever since. This is not about saving money. It is about refusing to be helpless in your own home when the heat comes for it. If this is the kind of old knowing you want kept alive, subscribe. There is a great deal more where this came from, and tell me down in the comments, what is the room in your house that turns into an oven every July? The upstairs bedroom, the attic, the kitchen that takes the western sun. And once you have hung the cloth, come back and tell me what changed when that first cool air came through the window. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been talking about cooling the room you live in, I am going to show you the old way my people kept food cold and clean through a summer with no refrigerator and no ice at all. A box, a cloth, and a little water, and butter that stays firm in the middle of August. It is the natural next step after today. Do not pay for what you can make. The wind is still free.